A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. My name is Brighton Ncube. Over the past few days, we've been talking to different candidates from different political parties, as S03EP04, CCC, and also from UNZA, as well as ZAPU. Unpicking their manifestos from LA National Assembly, as well as the local authority in terms of councillors. Today, I bring you another guest from CCC, the aspiring councillor for Ward 3, Mxolisi Mahlangu from CCC. Say good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast Club.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Briefly, who is Mxolisi Mahlangu? Political background. Who is Mxolisi Mahlangu?
No, my name is Mxolisi Mahlangu. I am the first youth of the democratic institution called MDC. I worked with the likes of Councillor Mahlangu, the late. After Councillor Mahlangu, I worked under Councillor Ncube as our district chair and various people like Councillor CCC for Ward 17. I also worked with guys that have gone to the diaspora, the guys like Njabulo Ngwenya and Mantula. Yeah, so I'm not new in the struggle. I've been in the struggle for quite some time. So although I had to take a break a bit when I was pursuing my studies, and then after pursuing my studies, I found employment in Beitbridge where I continued my activism in Beitbridge. I contested the 2013 elections as a councillor for MTC Green. Unfortunately, I didn't win that election. I lost. I was transferred back to Bulawayo, where I then joined the democratization of the space through activism. So yeah, in a nutshell, Mxolisi is a full-time political activist who believes in democracy, who believes in strengthening the democratic tools, who believes in the freedom of expression, not only within the party that I support, but across political parties. I'm one person who don't believe in not communicating with other people from other political parties or not being seen with people from other political parties. No, I believe that we must differ on engagement and ideology, but otherwise we must be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about maybe your ZANU-PF, I talk about my CCC, you talk about your UZA, without any beef. That's what I believe in.
Yeah, let's look at Bulawayo now. You want to be the councillor for Ward 3 in Bulawayo. What's your vision for the city of Bulawayo?
The city of Bulawayo, like it's known as the city of kings, if you look at it now, it has gone back to an acceptable standard in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of the architecture of how it is run. So my vision is that we could have people who will have a deliberate policy of developing Bulawayo. And how should we do this, given that the revenue streams in city council are dwindling? We need to find ways on how we can realize money that could assist a city council to develop. So we can do this through twinnings. We can have twinnings like the build, operate and transfer, the BOTs, where we look for investors, for example, in South Africa or in Europe, where they build certain infrastructures that will generate revenue. And once they generate revenue, we give them a certain tenure for them to run. And then once they do that, the property or the project returns back to city council and continuously give revenue to things. If you look at most of the metros, I'll give you an example of South Africa. They're being run on BOTs and PPPs, private partnerships with the private sector. You bring in people with monies. They build a pipeline, for example, from Durban to Pietermaritzburg, where they will pipe water to Pietermaritzburg from the sea, get it purified, and then push it through to the people. Because remember, the thrust or the focus of a councillor is to improve the quality of life for the citizens, regardless the political divide. So this is the main focus. We can talk a lot of these things and say what, but the thrust of a council is to ensure that there's clean water for the residents, there's good health for the residents, kids go to school. Education is a national right. But when you are in a place like my ward where you don't have a government primary school, you are literally denying children access to education.
Speaking of that, let's look at your ward now, Ward 3. What are the problems, key problems that are faced by people from Ward 3? You know, sometimes issues of infrastructure development, roads, clinics, and so on in schools. What are the key problems faced by people from Ward 3?
I'll start with ZESA. We have a persistent ZESA challenge in Ward 3 because the infrastructure that ZESA is using is very old. Transformers are constantly breaking down, and sometimes they are bursting. There's a lot of cable thefts. Remember, Ward 3 is peri-urban and urban. So we have people who come from the peripheries of Ward 3 who come and vandalize the infrastructure. And then because they are not affected, they go back, they go away. So yeah, we have a big challenge with ZESA. I've actually engaged the ZESA guys as we speak now. They are in the process of removing copper cables and replacing them with aluminum, which is a project, one of the highlights of my projects that I've done in my ward. I've also been instrumental in pushing for bringing a police camp in Woodville, where we have refurbished the Woodville Center. And we are still in the process of buying certain things to ensure that there is a police camp there so that at least there can be visibility of the police for the criminals. We haven't had piped water in Woodville since 2019 because of leakages. The pipes are as old as myself and they are leaking, and also we're getting water in Bowsers. So we have a plethora of challenges. We can't talk about roads. Mahachula and Woodville have been ruralized. There is not even a single tar road in my area. It's dust all over.
But one of the key challenges that people are facing is the issue of finances. To say, speaking about the roads, speaking about the sewer, speaking about the water, they will say the issue of finances because they're relying more on rentals. What, as an incoming councillor, what do you do to generate revenue for the council besides relying on rentals and rates?
One of the easy ways of generating revenue is twinning with the certain councils outside Zimbabwe, be it in Europe, be it in Africa. You come up with a model to say, okay, you are going to adopt us. We want to run this project. Remember, projects like running piped water to the communities are zero-sum projects. You don't generate any revenue from them. But when you twin with other cities outside Zimbabwe, they'll be able to provide funding. There are countries that are already willing to engage us to improve the quality of life, as what says in the UN Charter. It's only the political environment that stops these people from pushing. We once had a donor which wanted to help us in Woodville with the issue of water and the roads as well. But because they have to go through government had to stop it because it would be seen as propping the CCC councillors. So it is also important that we win not only as a councillor, but probably even Nelson Chamisa, our chief champion, to win, so that when we take these problems to him, he is able to understand from where we are sitting to say, okay, we need government authority on here. Because like I also mentioned, we need to create new revenue streams for the city council. We need to come up with ideas and projects that will create revenue and not depend on taxpayers' money, because people are not employed. Largely, they are not employed, so they have no revenue base. It becomes very difficult for people to honor their rates obligations, and hence that affects the way the city council functions. There are also projects that I think could be better run in terms of the revenue streams. For example, the issue of TTI. Personally, I feel it's not linked to the economy in terms of its pricing. I also have a problem with how they leverage the percentage that city council gets and the percentage that they get themselves, because I was told they'll be bringing infrastructure that is going to improve revenue collection. But when you move around in town, there's no infrastructure. And even how they collect the revenue, there is a serious leakage there, because it's at the discretion of the person collecting the money to decide whether you pay $1 or you pay $2 if you've overlapped into the next hour. So there are no leverages to check whether the $2 collected is what actually has to be collected. Yeah. So I think there needs to be looked, these things needs to be looked into and see how best it can be improved for the benefit of the citizens.
Let's move on to the issue of vendors. I know we're coming from Woodville and other areas in Madrid. There are many vendors there. And also you come to the CPD in Bulawayo, you can't walk on 6th Avenue. The pavements are full of vendors, people are selling things. As an incoming councillor, suppose you win that seat for Ward 3, what you do to solve the issue of vendors? I know the current councillors, they come up with places, so let's be islanders and so on, but what you do as an incoming councillor to solve the issue of vending?
The issue of vending is troublesome because it has got political interest from the ruling party. And particularly this instant where they are looking for votes, they will always resist. I remember city council has tried many times to engage the local police, city council police and the S03EP to try and ensure that these people are moved to designated bays. But all that has failed because of the politics. So until we get our politics right, we will be able to remove those people without any resistance, because the laws are there to ensure that they are applied without selecting who is the majority of the vendors supporting. So yeah, for now, it's quite a challenge. And even as we are going to move into council, we need a serious stakeholder engagement, because the way it is along 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue there, as you go down right up to Samuel Parrenyata, you can't even move. So this is why businesses are even closing and shifting to other places where their premises can be accessed easily with things. We can't run an economy like that. We can't run a country where everyone does as they please. You can't have a situation where a certain member of a political party just decides to mark stands in town on the roads and have that happening. So there's got to be a serious engagement with government to ensure they move from the roads.
You spoke of triple P's earlier on, say public-private partnerships and also board, say build, operate and transfer. But if we look at the current councillors right now, they've been stalled projects like a Brighton Ncube project. There's been the TTI project where they're partnership with a private company. Are you happy with those things that are currently happening in the current council?
No. The projects that have taken longer are an expense to the local authority. Remember, the longer the project takes to complete, especially in an economic environment like Zimbabwe, where there are a lot of fluctuations of the surrogate currency and the US dollars, it becomes very expensive to run that project. I'm one of the people who are so unhappy with the way the council has done the Egodini project. And what even icks me the most is that there's a missing link between the council and the residents in terms of updating people where the project is, why it has taken this long and stuff. So there's no one who cares to update the residents. It's like the councillors own these properties and on city council, yet we are in council to serve the public. So I think they don't understand their roles in terms of what they need to do. When you're a councillor, you are a servant of the people. You must be a go-to person when someone needs help. But in this instance, it's quite difficult to get public information to say Egodini has stalled, because they should be giving us public notices to say Egodini is stalling. These are the challenges that we are facing, and this is what we have done to mitigate the challenges.
And also, speaking on the issue of, as an incoming councillor, the issue of roles and also consultation meetings and so on. We have councillors where people expect them to attend for all the time. But maybe in own understanding, what is the role of a councillor and what you would do as an incoming councillor?
Attending funerals is the role for everyone that exists in a particular setup in a community. It is everyone's responsibility, because we are a brother's keeper as we live in our communities. More so when you're a leader, you must be able to show empathy when there's issues like funerals. So yeah, you are expected to attend. You might not be able to attend all the funerals because it's not possible. But at least you must try your level best to ensure you avail yourself for such issues. And also it becomes an easy platform as well to disseminate information and have certain announcements about developments in the ward, and so it becomes a good communicative platform. So it might not necessarily be a role of a councillor, because a councillor is not an undertaker, but because we are human beings, the ability to create that positive ambience as you live among people is what makes us a people. So yeah, it's critical, but the councillor needs to focus on service delivery. The councillor must ensure that people are well served. People shouldn't complain and start going to the councillor to say there's no water, there are no toiletry facilities in the communities, the roads are poor. The councillor must be able to say, to call a meeting and say, look, we have a road challenge here. This is what I've done. I've engaged this department, and this is what we are saying. We've got so much budget for development in the community, and this budget, can we share and see which project can we take together, so that at the end of the day it doesn't become a Mxolisi Mahlangu project, it becomes a community project. So whatever funding is there, it must be taken to the community to say, look, we're funding for what 3, but given that we have a plethora of challenges, what do you think can be best done to use this money for? And also we need to look at whether is this money enough to refurbish a road. Sometimes it will be better to sink a borehole for the people with that money, because it won't be adequate to refurbish a certain stretch of the road. So I think these dynamics need to be looked into also with the perspective of what are the budgetary requirements for that particular project. Yeah, and also a councillor is a policy maker. When you are in city council, you need to engage with the other councillors to ensure that you come up with policies largely that improve the quality of life for people, because this is our only focus, this is our only thrust, to get everyone even, take kids away from drugs and substance abuse. Like if you go to the other time, last week, I have one of the residents in Queen's Park who died because of drug abuse. It's rife in that area. A lot of young people who are idle with nothing to do are sinking themselves in drugs. Those are the responsibilities of a councillor, to ensure that how do we remove these boys from these circles where they end up taking their lives. Because as they sink their lives in poverty and drugs, it means the country has no future, because the youth are the backbone of the country. Yeah. So in terms of policy implementation, engagement with the stakeholders, ensuring delivery of health facilities. Like if you look at in Zimbabwe now, they are saying the elderly people are treated for free, but they only go to the hospital and consult. And after consulting, you are told to go for an X-ray at Dr. X in town. That X-ray requires $500. And that's a pensioner who gets $80 a month. So indirectly, that's a denial of giving people medical services. You can't say you're giving people free medication by simply consulting and asking them to go to town and get drugs. So we must be, as a councillor, we must be able, through the twinning arrangements, to ensure that that Mahachula clinic has all the facilities, where when the scan is needed, the person will be moved from this door to the next office to get a scan. When they need an X-ray, they are moved from this door to the next door to get a scan. And then we can talk about the free health delivery services. But in this instance, we are not doing anything. And it doesn't come out right as a leader who says he has impact and cares for his people, when you're denigrating your responsibilities.
Right, well, if you're just joining us on the Breakfast Club, my name is Brighton, and today my guest is Mxolisi Mahlangu, the aspiring councillor for CCC under Ward 3 in Bulawayo. But aspiring councillor, let's look around the issue of water in Bulawayo. You know, there's been an issue of water. Like from January to December, people are crying about the issue of water. In your manifesto, how will you tackle the following issues? Issue of water crisis in Bulawayo, issue of alcohol and drug abuse, issue of health. How will you tackle all those things, in particular issue of water?
I'm glad that there is this Matebele and Zambezi water project, which seems to be gaining traction. I think it becomes a lasting solution to the water issues in Matebele land. Because I think government has been sleeping on duty for the years. There's been a lot of migration from rural to town. and these dams were built to have capacity enough for those people in the early 80s and stuff. So clearly now we need to be building more dams. The resources are available. We need to be building more dams. We need to be identifying better catchment areas for water, because half the time you'd realize that it rains a lot and you are told the dam is only 3% full. It clearly means these dams are not located in proper water catchment areas. So those are the things that needs to be looked into to say, is this dam positioned well? Can't we engage government and have another dam? You see, I'm not yet sure though the capacity that we will have through this Matebele and Zambezi water problem project pipeline. But I think once that starts working, the issues of water in Bulawayo will be a thing of the past. Yeah.
So if you're looking at Ward 3, right, Bulawayo Ward 3, Bulawayo North, right, which areas does it cover?
Bulawayo North is a very big ward, especially Ward 2. Ward 2 and 3. We have a semi-urban area and we've got an urban area. So we start from Gwanda Road. As you are going towards Gwanda, on the left side of it, we are covering Kumalo, we cover NAST, we cover the School of Mines, there's Kilani, there's Parklands New and Old, there's Romney Park, there's Mhlangeni, there's Queensburg, Kingsdale, and then you turn and go into Woodville Park, which is bordered by Mahachula North, and then you go to Mahachula South as well, and then you proceed straight to Woodville City. There are two Woodvilles, and a lot of people are not aware. There is Woodville Park, there is also Woodville City. Yes, so yeah, my ward is geographically it's very big.
Yeah, but so far, how is the mood like? If you're giving pamphlets to the people from your ward, how is the mood like? How is the response from the people?
The mood is okay. Personally, I haven't had a negative comment, or I haven't had any negativity when I'm moving around. When I introduce myself, some people tell me they know me. And when I introduce myself, some people tell me, so yeah, ngena siza kusupporta, ungangena la ungasilahli. You know how people always talk to you when you are from the same hood. Yeah, so the engagements are positive because I'm able to get there shops la ngifike ngihlalele phansi. Sinathe kumbe kunatha ama drinks kumbe kwenza nisixoxe nje. Say, and share ideas. I have a lot of people who have volunteered, especially Woodville City where I come from. I tell you, I think every member of the Woodville committee, residence committee, are part of the activists that are pushing for my flyers and they are pushing for their sticking around my posters. The elderly, the support is overwhelming.
Let's focus now on the manifesto. How will you tackle the issue of youth unemployment in your ward, the issue of alcohol and drug abuse? You spoke about that earlier on. How will you tackle those two issues in your manifesto? What do you say about those things?
The issue of unemployment is a challenge because it's about 90% of the youth in my ward is unemployed, both the male and female. Like as it is now, I run a program every month of giving vendors in my ward sanitary towels, because I identified that there is a need. All that is because these people have no income to augment their legal vending monies to afford themselves even things that make them respectable and be decent in amongst others. So as a youth, as a means to address this unemployment issue now, I think because the economy is down, especially in the global south, there is no employment. So the only solution is projects. We need to look for money. We need to engage businesses and come up with projects in communities, projects that will help people. These days, a lot of people are doing fish farming, and once it's managed well, they can even sell the fish. They are doing chickens because like Woodville is peri-urban. There are plots where they can farm their chicken. These days, we can even do goats project and export the goats to Europe. So it's a question of looking for funding and grouping the youth into certain groups where they will focus on their projects. Because employment in this economy where you have 90% of unemployment, is going to be quite a challenge. And this is not only a Zimbabwean challenge. The whole of the global south is, the economy is low. If you look at the rand to the dollar now, the rand has plummeted so low. Companies are retrenching in South Africa. If you look at Zambia, and also because a lot of these countries in Southern Africa can't create jobs because there's no beneficiation of our products. We are all exporting our raw materials. If at least the government was going to say, not only the government, my vision is that if Southern Africa would then sit down and say, Zimbabwe, South Africa, what are you strong at? South Africa is strong at producing cars and stuff, and say, Zimbabwe, stop producing cars. Let all the cars be produced in South Africa. We create employment for youth in South Africa. Zimbabwe, you are strong in gold and platinum. Don't export platinum as raw materials. Do a beneficiation for the platinum and the gold and the tin and the chrome, so that we can then create employment. If you look at the supply chain industry at railways, we're moving a week about 2 rakes of 40 wagons each to Mozambique for export as chrome, as raw material. Imagine if that raw material was to be turned into usable material. Imagine if platinum was to be converted without being exported in platinum. We'll create a lot of employment. But because Africa is hell-bent on self-aggrandizing, and they've always used these raw materials as a conduit for siphoning money out of the country, it becomes problematic. So the best thing is to look for funding, do these projects.
Yeah.
Goat farming, cake farming, yeah.
So before we close the show, let's look at the issue of filtering and deploying amount of a local in that community. We are from Ward 3, right? How important is filtering and deploying amount who are coming from that community? And also linking that to issue of Ozibut and so on. People know you from Ozibut. How important is filtering and deploying a party from the local community?
It's very critical. I personally am a resident chair in Woodville City. I was pushed by the people to go for council. I think it was largely because of the way I've worked with them. And then they said, why don't you try council? Don't you think we'll have a good representative? It's advantageous. They know what I've done before in the community. And that community is the community where we meet with the chairpersons, the secretaries, Abos. That's the same community where we meet with the chairpersons, the secretaries, Abo Neighborhood Watch Committee. That's the same community where we meet as the resident committee chair and the executive. So as we sit down and discuss our ills that affect the country, it becomes easy to say, Mxolisi, when Umtaka Patrick, if you can't deliver, we'll go to Patrick and ask him, you understand? You go to your mom. Your mom is probably a member of the Zayoja or the SDA church, who will talk to the SDA church elders to talk to you so that you can deliver. It becomes easy that way. But when you're a stranger in the community, like what obtains in some of the wards, it becomes difficult. People can't even engage you because they can't find you. And you have people who has difficulties in engaging with people because they don't know anyone in the community. So it really becomes a challenge. It's easy working with the community when you are from the community because you are known. There is always someone who can pinch you and say, but why are you doing this? But why are you doing this? But if you are a stranger, it becomes difficult and it affects service delivered. All they come here, get stamps from council and whatever freebies. And this is one thing that I think fuels corruption, because these people have no connection whatsoever with the community. So whatever happens in the community, it's none of their business because they're not affected. You see, so yeah, it's critical to have people coming from within the people, from among the people, so that you are also driven by passion to see your area develop. If you look at Woodville, when we grew up, we had a heated swimming pool. We had that whole center had lawn. We were playing squash, tennis, and everything. Now it's a bush, abandoned. It's only fences and high grass like it's in a farm. You see, the aggregate of that problem is that people that have represented the area before are people who have no interest with the area. So it's really critical to have representatives that are coming from within our communities.
Mm-hmm. Suppose August 23, we have elections, we're coming to the elections, I'm seeing your name on the ballot paper, I'm coming from Hachula, I'm coming from Queen's Park, I'm coming from Woodville. Why should I vote for Mxolisi Mahlangu? Please tell us, why should we vote for you? There's the camera there.
Mxolisi Mahlangu is a tried and tested leader. Where I serve, I'm employed as a manager. I know what responsibility is about. I am a family man. I have 3 daughters. I am married. I know how it feels when we talk about drug abuse, because I've got kids that needs to be protected from that. I know how it feels when communities go without food because there are no shops in the area. So Mxolisi is a responsible leader. Mxolisi is a servant of the people, and I've already demonstrated that, not only in Woodville where I stay. If you ask the residents, chairs in Mahachula, they will attest to that. I personally have even buried certain individuals who have had financial challenges. So I'm not going to start working for the community because I've been elected as a council. I've been working with the community for quite some time now. So I believe in servant leadership where people engage. I'm not one person I have no iota of a dictatorial tendency in my system. I always even tell my workers committee team that everything must be through positive engagement, and we agree as a team, because teams are the only building blocks towards success. So we will work as teams, and if you want transparency, come to Mxolisi. If you want responsibility, vote for Mxolisi. If you want servant leadership, vote for Mxolisi. If you want proper service delivery engagement with respect, vote for Mxolisi.
You started doing your campaigns, your door-to-door, campaigns?
Yes, actually, I was involved in the by-elections last year, August. I never drifted away from the ward. I've always been on the ground. But in the past 2 weeks, this is when I started distributing my pamphlets, my flyers, and sticking my posters here and there. So yeah, the campaign is on, it's gained traction, and the people are clear. They know what they want, and what makes it even more, it's because I'm from among themselves. So they know they are voting their own. Yes.
Mr. Mahlangu, thank you so much for your time this morning for coming to the Breakfast Club.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is the Breakfast Club. My guest has been Mxolisi Mahlangu from CCC, lawyer, Ward 3, aspiring councillor. He says vote for him because it's going to bring different things. And on his manifesto this morning, I hope you guys enjoy the show. And please do follow site for more election updates. We're going to be giving you from YouTube, Facebook, as well as the Twitter page. From myself, Brighton Ncube, it's bye for now. Do enjoy the show.